Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more.
Seem like you can do everything and you fit everything in and you do this and you do that. And actually, you really, there's a lot of things where you get to the point, like you say, like actually, you know, what's the priority? It's like either it's family or it's close friends or business or whatever. And then there's certain things that like you might get invited to that's like, look, that just doesn't fit in there. As much as I'd like to go to it and it'd be great. Unfortunately, there's just no more time in this week for that thing.
Yep. Welcome to episode 499 of the Man That Can Project podcast. I'm your host, Lachlan, Stuart. And today we have a truly inspiring guest with us. He is a man who has journeyed from high-intensity world of professional rugby to the equally demanding realm of personal fitness and training. He's the founder of 98 Gym here in Australia, a place that's not just about lifting weights, but also lifting standards and expectations, a place where inclusivity means holding everyone to the same high bar. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm thrilled to introduce Chris Feather. Now, Chris has built a fitness empire that's transforming lives, creating a community that's as focused on mental resilience as it is physical strength. Today, we'll delve into his journey, the hard work, the transitions, the challenges, and the triumphs. We'll explore the philosophy that drives 98 Gym and learn about the unique programs that are making a difference in so many lives. So whether you're here for some fitness inspiration, insights on building a brand from scratch, or you're just curious about the man behind 98 Gym's success story, you're in for an absolute treat. But before we dive into the conversation with Chris, I would love to remind you to subscribe to the Man That Can Project podcast wherever you're listening. Right? By subscribing, you'll get instant access to the weekly episodes filled with inspiring stories, practical tips, and expert advice. And, you know, a lot of people ask me, how can we support you and what you're doing? The most simple thing you could do, and one that has the most impact, is share the episodes with people that you believe will get value from it. Share the episodes on social media and hit that subscribe button, because what that then allows me to do is impact more people with the incredible guests that come on the show and continue to deliver incredible guests. You know, guests that we have coming up. We have a naturopath coming on talking about the link between gut health and mental health. We have an expert on psychedelics, which is going to be a very interesting one, a longevity expert, and so many more brilliant experts coming on to help you gain the insight and tips to better improve your life. Now, if you could take that 30 seconds to do that, that would be amazing. But without further ado, let's get started on the episode with Chris. To live more fulfilling lives, we are here to challenge your beliefs, redefine success, and talk about the important stuff in a relatable way. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. My name's Lachlan Stuart. Let's get into it. Chris Feather on the show. Mate,
Hey, mate,
welcome.
Thank you.
Just checking out the new facility. You're pretty stoked with it?
Yeah, very happy with it. Yeah, we new facility in the Sydney Swans headquarters at Moore Park. It's got our gym and head office here, so it's been nice nice to be around.
Yeah, you were showing me around before, and it's hard not to be inspired walking around that and like being around high performing people. And I think as a business owner, and you're also a former athlete as well.
Yeah,
it's just gives you that energy to want to train harder and work harder, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a sort of, like you said, I sort of came from a professional sport background, so having the opportunity to open a gym in a professional sport high performance centre was a no-brainer really. And sort of one of the things that got to me was they call our entrance the boot room. And so
the boot room.
Yeah, so we walk in through the boot room and the Swans players go right into their gym, and then the 98 members go left into our gym. And it was like, I was just like, right there, brushing shoulders with professional athletes on the way in. It's pretty cool.
Are you going to have an end of season like throwdown to see who's fitter? athletes versus the 98 crew? Because your programming is insane.
Yeah, I think it's a funny thing, actually. We've had obviously like this partnership with the Swans, and people are like, oh, get some competitions and this and that. And I think, you know, any professional athlete is built and trained and everything else to do their job as a professional athlete. I think you'd definitely have some sort of rowers and stuff like that out of a lot of gyms that could come and beat some athletes. But then it's like, could you go on the field and do what they do?
Yeah, well, exactly.
So it's kind of
situational.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll definitely have we'll have some fun, I think, that's for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. When I was, Brad, who you met up in Brisbane when you were at 98 in Brisbane, he's like, mate, you got to meet Chris. You got to have Chris on the show because obviously you're both Englishmen, but he hit it off well. And when I was doing a lot of listening, I've listened to a few podcasts that you were on, and then obviously looked all through 98. And the boys in Toowoomba, like Phil Curry and Simon Cook and all that, have been doing your program for as long as I can remember. There are a few things that I wanted to pick your brain on that I feel, from a selfish standpoint, are going to help me better improve my life, but I also know our audience can benefit from it as well. You know, you run a hugely successful business. You've had what did you play, 9 to 10 years of professional footy, or maybe more, 12 years.
Yeah, it would be about 10, yeah.
Yeah, professional footy. So you've got high standards. You have results that back everything that you do. So I guess things that I want to take this conversation, the value of hard work, because I saw your dad had a major influence in that. Adaptability and career transition. A lot of our audience are blokes, and there's a thing around midlife crises and all of that sort of stuff. But to me, I just look at it as a change from one moment in your life to the next. You've done that from being a professional athlete to then going into business. Yeah. And obviously then the influence of mentors and the environment around you. But before we sort of navigate into that, I'd love to sort of hear where it all began for you back in the UK.
Yeah, so I'm from a small town called Keighley, which is an industrial town in the north of England. Yep. They're all pretty much the same, very cold, quite misty.
Yep.
Which was, I didn't know any different growing up, but I loved it. Like you said, my dad owned his own business. He was a mechanic. Mum was a teacher, so they both worked all the way through. And I have a sister, so a year younger than me. We sort of, like I say, went to school, grew up in Keighley, enjoyed life there, plenty of sort of outdoor activities, and played a lot of different sports and all this type of thing. I got to sort of, I started as a swimmer, did sort of athletics.
Did you? Right.
Yeah, weirdly. I know everyone says that now, but I was a lot skinnier when I was younger.
Yeah, so right.
I was always tall and really thin. Started as a swimmer, sort of moved to sort of doing athletics and stuff like that, sort of in the middle of school. And then towards the end of school, it wasn't until I was about probably 15, 16, where I took up rugby league. So that was so we didn't play it at school. It was a sort of an outside thing. I had a lot of mates who played it, and a couple of lads were like, oh, you got to come down and play for us. So went and played. No, sorry, actually, I played rugby league younger. I was probably 13. Played for Keighley and a couple of other clubs. When I got to finishing off at school, I'd applied to go to uni, sport and exercise science at Leeds Met, which is a pretty decent uni over there. And at the time, I was playing for a club called Wakefield Trinity. So I was playing for the academy. It wasn't I wasn't being paid or anything like that. It was just for fun. I had a few mates out there, and ended up getting offered a full-time contract to play Super League when I was 17. So just in the gap between leaving school and going to university. So it was a bit of it was one of those things. Like I said, I hadn't played sport rugby all my life. So it wasn't one of those things where I've just always wanted to be a professional rugby league player. Yeah. It was one of those things where I really enjoyed it, and it was something I didn't expect really. So when it came up, it was it was a bit of a sort of tough or weird time, I guess. My mum, like I said, my mum's an academic. She was a teacher and everything else, and so the university path. And my dad, he's a workhorse really, but he wasn't really into sport. He watched my sport, but he still doesn't watch any other sport apart from like myself or my sister that we were involved in. Yeah. And so it was I remember getting offered the contract and thinking, all right, like, I wonder how this is going to go with my parents, and they're sort of locked into me going to university. But I went home, and my mum sort of one of the two major things she ever said to me, like, or most major things, she's just like, oh, look, you know, so many people will never get this chance and you'll never get it again. Like, you could always go to uni later if you don't enjoy it or if it don't work out, but there's no way you can turn this down. So from there,
wow,
sort of put a pause on university and went, played, it'd be 10 years. So I played for a few clubs in the Super League and then had a year in France with a mate that I'd played rugby league with, Jules Rinaldi. I sort of played with him throughout my career, and then he moved home and I moved there. Had a year with him, which was great. It was kind of like a wind down. You know, we sort of played a game every other week, and we were in the south of France. So you go down to Biarritz on your weekend off, or
living the dream,
up to the snow, and yeah, it was crazy. I really enjoyed that, but it also kind of gave me a bit of a break as well from the sort of wheel of Super League. I'd been offered a deal to go back and play another 3 years at the club I'd finished with, but I'd just kind of, I don't know, I felt like I'd kind of had enough. And one of my really good mates, Sam Burgess, had just signed to play for South. So as I was wrapping up in France, it's like, all right, I either kind of go back to England and sign another 3 years professionally, or something else, stay in France or whatever. Sam rang up and just said, mate, like, this is, you know, we'll love it here. You know, come on holiday, take a break. We'd already been to Australia a few times on holiday. You know, come over, see what you can do. Like, you can come stay with me. Don't worry about rent. Like, you know, I'm sponsored by Jeep at the time. I've got a spare car you can use. And
so the golden ticket,
I was
mate.
like, so again, I made that phone call to my mum. I was like, oh, look, you know, kind of wrapping everything up and throwing it in and going to Australia and seeing what happens, or coming back to stability in the UK. And, you know, my dad has a business, and, you know, that was kind of always in the back of my mind that I'd finish playing and go work with my dad. And again, she's like, look, do it, you know, get over there, test it out, see what it's like. You know, we're always here if it don't work out. And so I did. And then, that's kind of from that, sort of got over it, loved it. You know, I was a retired sportsman, so it's kind of, Australia don't need any more retired sportsmen. So the visa was like impossible to come by pretty much. So I was on a holiday visa. The only sort of options looked like, from my experience, which was, like I said, professional sport with no qualifications really, apart from that, was gym stuff. So like gym manager or a personal training manager were the two visa options at the time. Neither of which I'd done before. So I hadn't been a gym manager, I hadn't been a PT manager, and both of which you had to have 12 months on your visa, which I only had a 12-month visa. So as soon as I got here, it was less than a year. So it was a bit of a random one. From there, I went and did a PT course in Australia, because I'd done a lot in England, but it was sort of different over here. So I did the PT course, started doing a bit of PT just in the parks and stuff like that, and then another sort of real pivotal point in my life, I'd met Russell Crowe in England when he was shooting Robin Hood, when he first met Sam. So we had a mutual friend, Dean Widders, who... Oh, yeah. So we had a mutual friend, Dino, and I was playing with Dino at the time, and obviously, like I said, really good mates with Sam, and Dino's really good mates with Russell. So he'd said, look, can you get these guys? Let's meet up. Let's have a Guinness in Nottingham. Sorry, not Nottingham, Sherwood Forest. So I'd met him briefly in England. When I got here, obviously, I was living with Sam, so we'd kind of bumped into each other, had a couple of drinks here and there, and got on, did a few little jobs, and ended up getting a job training him for a company called Jim Jones. They were the US based company, and there was I needed to do some training pre-production of Superman. So they needed a trainer to train him in Australia, to just follow their program, basically make sure he did what he needed to do before he got to the US. And got
how long had you, or how recent were you out from doing your certification, like before you got that job with?
What would it be? Not long, 6 months. But there wasn't, to be honest, there wasn't a lot in the certification that probably we hadn't done previously. I always think, like everybody needs the qualifications, but the experience as well is sort of worth its weight in gold. So I think, off the back of that, we just sort of got a phone call to help through this piece, and Russell had requested I do it, and training for it went really, really well. It was, the guys at Jim Jones were great. The program was great. It was a like dream job really in Sydney. So I was, training a few clients, and then I'd have Russell, and it was, it was gold. And then sort of from there, this is a long story.
Yeah.
Just stop me if you need me to. But from there, went to Jim Jones then. Sort of within all the stuff with training Russell for Superman, I met Mark Twight, who was the founder of Jim Jones, who's an unbelievable bloke. Like, sort of really, I suppose I met him and a couple of the other guys at Jim Jones upon like retiring from sport and kind of like not having the team around you and not having the highs and the lows of the games every week, and like it'd been a long career. It was like, it was a big drop really. I was in Australia, it was brilliant, but it was a bit of a weird time. Having the opportunity to do some work for Jim Jones, meet Mark Twight, who definitely had a great outlook on. I really latched on to like what he had to say, and the way he sort of approached life, and the way he sort of his values and whatever else. I had the opportunity then to go spend time with those guys in Utah. The first time was about 4 weeks, and then I went another couple of times after that. Eventually becoming a fully certified instructor over there. And at the time there was only 8 in the world. So
really,
it was the first. Yeah, and there's only one. Well, it was only me in Australia. So at the time then, worked with Russell on sort of 5 movies, I guess. So I travelled with Russell all over the world for a couple of years.
How was that? It was
great. It was just crazy, really. Sort of coming out of Keighley to, coming here to then being, like I say, going. The first job was in New Orleans, and then we went back to the UK, and then did New York and Iceland, and it was crazy.
So what would a day in the life look like while you're doing that sort of thing?
It varied depending on which job it was, but generally, if you were sort of in pre-production, so before the film, we'd only train like maybe like once or potentially twice a day, and so you'd just have him, like I'd be in the gym in Sydney probably, and he might come in and we'd train in the morning and then train in the afternoon. So it was a pretty standard client. And then when you went to wherever the film was, you're full time then really. So you get up in the morning and we spent a lot of time bike riding. So we'd go a bike ride, and then we might you'd sort of train, and we'd eat, and it was like the best. It was
that
really
would have been phenomenal. I'm just sitting here thinking how good.
Yeah, like the first one was New Orleans. Like I'd never been there. The first time we were there, we just spent the first sort of week just getting around on bikes and seeing everywhere and all this, which was cool. And then I suppose when the film starts, then it's very different. Like it's a very taxing job. Like look, as an actor to look at what they actually do, it's impressive. It was impressive to me, like watching kind of Russell, know all his lines, know where to be, remember it. It's a big job, a lot of sort of pressure. So and also like then learning a script for the next film or whatever it may be. So there'd be minimal time then. So you might have an hour, 40 minutes a day where you'd try and fit something in, or we'd ride to set or wherever it may be. Like in Iceland, we rode to set every day pretty much. So it was like
wow,
which was cool, but the days are a lot longer there. That obviously end of a sort of long shoot, they go and you need to relax a little bit and whatever. So, but the day they varied, and it varied depending on what they need to look like. Obviously, if you need to lose 10 kilos to fit into a suit or whatever, then that. And if you need to be a bit bigger because you're playing Noah and he's building an ark, and so it sort of varied, but it was cool.
So you would have got to see though Russell go from either like dropping whether it was a huge amount of weight or a little amount of weight, to then also putting on muscle and size as well. So you saw the human body sort of swing on that pendulum with one person as well, right?
Yeah, you spend sort of a lot of time with one person. The sort of there's a decent amount of change, and it's good. It's sort of a good experience.
I find that interesting. I wanted to sort of touch on that just because there are a lot of people who have limiting beliefs that they can't get their body to a specific, whether it is building muscle. I hear a lot of blokes always saying, I can't put on muscle, but they refuse to track calories, or they might not look at their training program, etc. Same with weight loss. But then obviously, with Russell, you managed to do both, right? That's one individual achieving two outcomes depending on what he needed. It just needed good guidance and,
Yeah, they have I'm like not taking anything away from it, but they also have, like you said, they have the best of everything. So they would have a trainer and a program and a chef who would make the food, and then so. But you're right; it's kind of like, how important is it to you?
Yep.
And in that situation, like it's very important. Like if it's the job. So if you're not at a certain weight or whatever that you're supposed to be at, then you're not doing your job basically. And he took his job very, very seriously. So it was it was good. It was an experience.
And do you feel like being around Russell and I guess other people on set, and even coming from the rugby and your family, the hard work that it instilled with you, was there one pivotal moment or one moment that really stands out for you from any of those phases in your life that made you recognise the importance of hard work?
It's been a sort of a constant. It's been a constant thing in the back of in front of me for a long time. Like I said, I grew up in it was like a industrial town, and my dad was a mechanic, so it was it was always cold and wet where we were. So it was it wasn't a glamorous type of job. He was up at 4 a.m. Worked all day and it was cold, and and a lot of lifting and carrying and oil and diesel, and then he'd come home at night at 6 or 7, and I'd be like, oh, wow, he works hard, and he was kind of well known for that as well. Like people knew he was a grafter. That's what they used to say. He's a grafter, your dad. But then I looked at what it brought us as a family as well. Not taking anything away from my mum. She worked as well. But I looked at what it brought us. It brought us, we went overseas on holiday. We had a nice place to live. Like, we always had a sort of nice car. We had the opportunity to go out for dinner as a family and all those things. And it's like, all right, this is because of hard work. And this is, you know what I mean? It was one of those things that, you could see it. I guess it was drilled into me from an early age. And never it's never let me down. There's never been an opportunity where I've thought, oh, I worked too hard on that. And you never, even you work hard on something that don't work out, at least you've worked hard on it. So you never regret working hard.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I look at, I asked you what like your day looks like, because I'm always curious to see how people spend their time, and your day looks very similar to mine. I personally feel like, you work hard, but you also have this balance around things that are important to you. Always look after your own health. I saw there was time for training. You're picking your kids up from school. You're in the office. You're doing all of these things that are important to you, but you're not doing a million things, which I find it's reassuring for me, because, as I said, my calendar looks very similar to yours. I don't have the kids part, but it's great to see someone achieving so much, but still having that balance. And obviously bringing that back to your dad was a role model for you and instilled hard work. You're doing the same for your family, and even for the people around you, where it's like Chris is, successful business owner, has played elite sport, awesome family man, great mate, and he's still managing to make time for everyone. He doesn't have to sacrifice, because a lot of our clients in the Man That Can project feel like they have to sacrifice health and they have to sacrifice relationships in order to achieve career success, and I just don't buy into that. And once again, I get to chat to a lot of successful people like yourself who also are proving that it's possible to do it another way. Yeah,
I think, like you say, I suppose from the outside it always looks a little different than probably it is from the inside. You sort of, I suppose, the term successful as well. You never kind of feel like we're just there yet, if you know what I mean, which is probably one of those things that, from what I can gather, never happens. But I value my family and my wife. Without my wife, I wouldn't be where we are now. So that's I value those. I value the kids, obviously. Again, I see the time that my mum and dad put into me growing up and everything else, and I've walked away from, moved overseas and everything else. But I can really, you can look back, I suppose, as you get older and then you have kids and you look at these things that happen to you or that your mum and dad did for you when you were younger that at the time never really clicked. And then I think, oh shit, like my dad, he would come home, he'd go to work at 4 a.m. and then he'd come home at 8 o'clock and like a couple of days a week, and he'd walk all the kids on our street to school. So we'd walk over the field and we'd like look at, okay, whoever can pick, when we're at this lamppost, the school bell rings, whoever picks the right spot when the bell rings gets the choice of the chocolate bar on the way home. And then he'd come and pick us up at 3 o'clock and he'd have 5 chocolate bars and it'd be like, all right, well, you pick. And you think I think now, I come to work at the same time. Like for me to get home in the middle of the morning to walk the kid, like it's a massive sort of it's an hour and you sort of like, and then to do the same at night and then to go back to work. It's not at the time I didn't think anything of it. And now I'm looking at it like thinking, God, that's a massive effort. That's a massive thing where it's, he's put us in front of everything else, And again, like I said, my mum did the same. She was a teacher. She I think she's been a big impact. I think the way she's kind of lived her life, I suppose, career-wise, has really kind of been instilled in me as well. Just the way that, I suppose, to elaborate on that a little bit, she went to school and everything else. She worked in a tax office in the local town where we had me and my sister. After that, went back to university to do a teaching degree. Then was a teacher for, I don't even know, probably, I guess I'd say it'd be 10 years, and sort of moved through the ranks and got to the point where she was like, actually, I'm not enjoying this anymore. I've spent a lot of time, talked to a lot of people and everything. I think back in the day, which I'm talking sort of 20 years ago now, she wanted to be a life coach, which wasn't a thing back then. This was 20 years ago, because she'd spent a lot of time talking to people and helping people, and he went back to uni, did sort of a qualification to be qualified in being a life coach, and then quit a job being a teacher to kind of explore it a little bit. And it started as she'd have 2, 3, 4 people a week, and it was just helping it with friends of friends and all that, to the point where she was doing a lot of it, and then got offered a job in for a bigger company. But then again, got to that point, she was like, you know what, this is not right. This is not what I want to do. And drew a line in it there, and then moved on to something else. I think for me, that kind of made the transition from footy to this quite a lot more smooth, because I looked at, well, my mum did this for 10 years and then totally switched to do something totally different, and it was a success, and then did something else again after that,
That's awesome to have such great role models like that. It's, especially the generations before, it was very rare for them to change professions, right? It was, you choose your career and you stick to it, you grit and bear it, regardless of how fulfilling it is or how much you enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I look at that now, and, I suppose I look at that now and I think, again, it comes back to the family, my dad's kind of working in his job and everything else. And I suppose I look at myself now, you make this, gave my mum the ability to go back to university. I'm hoping I can do that for my wife, if that's something she wants. I can't right now. She's working as well, and we're kind of both, but I hope that can be something I can do. I feel like I look at these things that my parents have done, whether it be as a parent or partner or whatever, and then I'm like, all right, hopefully I can do that.
It's a good driving force. And what is the drive behind everything that you're creating now?
The drive behind it is creating for my family, really. I want my kids and to be able to grow up with whatever they need, really. Like I said, I want to be able to, if they want to go to university, we can afford, or they want to go to school, or whatever it is that they want to do, or they want to have a year out and go and travel the world, or we want to be able to facilitate that. I'm not saying we're going to give them everything for free, but I want them to feel like, I want them to have the ability to make a choice to do whatever they want, really.
Yep.
And if 98 can work and we can, make the family financially comfortable and all that, that's kind of, I suppose that's the end goal for me. There's a lot leads up to that. Like, I love the job. So that's one of those things that, again, I feel very lucky that I love it. I love the job. I love training firstly. And then I love the people that I get to, I used to get to hang around them and train with them. Now I can like employ them and they work for us and we all work together. And I come to work and it's like, my wife jokes like when I'm like, oh yeah, I've got to go. I've got to go to Brisbane this weekend and work. And she's like, oh, yeah, work, what a nightmare. You got to go, what do you mean? You got to go train, do FYF, have a coffee with Jaden, like anything else? And I'm like, oh, look, it's not quite like that. But it actually is.
But it's cool that you've created that for yourself, though, as well, right? Like, I think I'm sure there's so much risk that you've taken in order to put yourself in that position. It's very easy for people to maybe look at what you have created and not see what's going on behind the scenes, which we sort of touched on a moment ago. How did 98 come to be? So obviously that year you were training in Russell for a while. Your visa was running out. How did it all? How the hell did you get a visa?
Well, and obviously there were these things that I could do, and one of them was a gym manager. So when we were kind of wrapping up one of the films and my visa was dying out, I sort of said to Russell, look, at the time he owned a building at 98 Riley Street in Darlinghurst, and on the ground level was like an office gym. So it'd been fitted out like an office gym for the levels above, and he owned it, and at the time he's like, look, you can go and use it and rent, you can actually go use it, you can rent it off me. So I like rented space off him to do PT, and that's where we would train him and whatever. And it was nice. It was cool, like a really cool space. It'd been fit out really nice. There was no one in there really. So coming back from, off the back of the film work and Jim Jones and these other, and obviously like a sporting career, it was kind of saw in my mind there was a bit of a gap in the market. I kind of came to Sydney and I wanted to train at a gym because, that was just what I'd done for the last however long, and went and tried all these gyms out, and I'm like thinking there's all these, at the time, then I suppose still now, there's all these different fads and all these different things, and I'm like thinking, I've been educated over the last 10, 11 years on how to train. It's evolved. Like 10 years ago, we were doing 10K runs twice a week to keep fit. Towards the end of my career, it was a lot of erg-based stuff, a lot of mass stuff, like it got smarter. So when I left playing, I feel like we were training at the peak, if you know what I mean. Yep. So then I'd come and you'd jump in a group circuit session, for example, and I just feel like I'm not going to do this 5 times a week because this isn't smart. Like this is not what I want to do. Like I'm not going to spend money firstly and time to not like lift a decent percentage of my body weight to get stronger. Like this is called a strength session, but it's actually not because the limit is 40 kilos. Like it's not going to get, and so. Yeah, I'd seen this sort of gap, and it was a sort of analogy I use all the time when people ask me is like, if you wanted to, be the best business person in the world, you look and see who you think would be the best business person in the world, and you seek out any kind of sort of things they've done, like podcasts or written a book or any articles they've written or anything else to kind of just, understand it and learn it and try and emulate it. And I'm like, okay, who's the fittest and strongest people in the world? Like, well, it'd be professional athletes at some level, somebody along those lines. So, and then if we want to get fitter and stronger, why are we not doing what they're doing? Because they're definitely not doing this.
You just made that sound so simple, right?
Well, it was that simple in my head. Yeah. And so then it was like, there's literally nowhere. There's some very good smaller gyms, definitely, like smaller gyms, some great coaching and all that in Sydney. But at the time it was, I wanted to train in a group with a team like I had done when I was playing footy, and I didn't want to go and do PT. It wasn't a thing, it wasn't what I was seeking. And I'd looked at Jim Jones, and that's what they were doing. They had groups and they were doing specific strength days and specific like energy system days, and then they'd have a team day at the end of it. And it was like, right, okay, let's try and build out something like that here. Said to Russell, look, I think we could do this. We could sort of off the back of this professional sport career, and we pull some people in and let's build out a program. We'll open a gym that's it's kind of, it's not exclusive, but it's it's selected on hard work. Like if you want to get fitter, you want to get stronger, it was like, okay, come with us. It wasn't a case of like at the time we had 50 memberships and people were like, oh, they knew people would know it was Russell's gym and I'll give you 10 grand for the year. And it's like, no, it's not about that. Like we want someone who comes in and puts the effort in with the team and everything else. And then as a byproduct looks and feels stronger. So I suppose that business idea, put it to Russell and he just kind of came back to me and said, look, if put a business plan together for me, if, tell me what you think, if it looks like it's going to work, where do you need sponsoring at what point? So it was basically put it together, and give it to me. I gave it to him. He looked at it, spent some time with it, had his business manager look at it and came back and said, look, let's do it. If it works, you can sponsor yourself as a manager to stay. If it doesn't, you'll have to go. And that was it.
Had you ever done a business plan or anything like that?
No, never. But you mentioned something earlier about like sort of mentors and people around you. I feel like from, I suppose moving here, I met some really, really great people, like through training, basically taking PT sessions. I met some great people and all the way through, even up to right now, like I've got some very like people who like friends and mentors that helped. And so, I put it, sort of asked one of the guys to help me with it. He's still a member of the gym now. Put it together for me. And that was the first one I ever did. And now I've still got it and I look at it and I laugh because I think if somebody gave this to me now, it would be like, it looks like my son's done it.
Well, mate, simple and effective potentially.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
It does show the power of environment though. One thing, I played footy in France as well and I never had an environment of people who are, I guess, financially successful. We had a lot of people from Toowoomba who play professional rugby and all of that sort of stuff. So you see that, but you never get to understand the other elements of life that make you successful, from being a good parent to finances, etc. So I'd never thought that was possible for myself. And then obviously going down the sport route as well, you start getting connected with people who start having conversations that open your mind and also your network to other people. And all of a sudden, you're learning about things that you didn't think were possible for you, and you recognize that, fuck, that bloke's just like me. If he can do it, I can do it. And it's sort of this snowball effect. And, I'm really deliberate with who I spend time with and who I want to learn from and what things I can learn from people and what I can hopefully give back to others. And for a long period of my life, I never did that. I just sort of knocked around like a piece of tumbleweed. Yeah. I think a lot of people aren't very deliberate with who they spend time with to try and better their life. So it sounds like that's one of the things, it's part of the theme of what's helped your success as well.
It definitely has, yeah. I've got a lot of people to thank, I guess, for sort of where we are now in this stage. I think something you touched on earlier, it was like, seem like you can do everything and you fit everything in and you do this and you do that. And actually, you really, there's a lot of things where you get to the point, like you say, like actually, what's the priority? It's like either it's family or it's close friends or business or whatever. And then there's certain things that like you might get invited to that's like, look, that just doesn't fit in there. As much as I'd like to go to it and it'd be great. Unfortunately, there's just no more time in this week for that thing. Yep. I think that's vital. Like, I think you have to be able to do that. I think from, and I go back and forth with my wife on this a lot because I don't have sort of an issue in saying I can't be there. Yeah. If it's not a priority, and I'll be totally honest by saying, look, I can't be there. I haven't spent enough time with my kids this week, and I want to, I've been away all weekend, so Saturday and Sunday I'll be at home, and that's it. There's obviously things that override that, like if something happens at work that needs sorting, or if, a friend needs you or whatever it may be. But as a general rule of thumb, I think as far as people and influence around you, it's that, there's an overused quote, like you're a result of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Honestly, I couldn't believe in that anymore. Yeah. I've been lucky from the start. Like I said, I've met, I suppose, the gym being in Darlinghurst and sort of like in a sort of decent area of Sydney, and there's a lot of CBDs 5 minutes walk away, and there's a lot of creative agencies around where we are, and I feel like I've had some, I've got some great friends and mentors that have really helped me with some, money can't buy advice and time. And, there's a guy, Adam Tripp Smith, who he owns a company called Convoy now, and that's like a keg hire business. So
Right.
He started another one. He's been through multiple businesses, multiple capital raises. Like being through COVID, like everybody else did, where his whole business closed down. He has a family, wife, like son and daughter, and I look at the way, I suppose, like you said earlier, like I look at him and I just think, right, this guy is doing everything. Like he's operating at a very, very high level at business. He's built a team that he has an outstanding team. Like his team all train at our gym, but they're a team inside of work and outside of work.
Yeah.
They're like it's a team where, I think a lot of people talk about building culture and this and that and the other. Like a lot of people talk about it and some people do it. Like he's doing it.
Yep.
And I think a lot of it's not deliberate as well. I think he's just a good leader. And then, his family life, like he's been and supported me at like an event. I remember being at an event. I mean, he does it all the time. We've been at an event in Melbourne. We at the gym in Melbourne. He came. He supported us at this event all day, and it got to 4:00 and we finished. We're like, okay, like let's go and have a beer, all the lads and that. He's like, look, I can't. I'm on an Uber. I'm on the flight at 5. I need to be home on a Friday afternoon because I have dinner with my wife and kids. We go out to the Italian in Balmain, and this is what we do. And it's like, that decision is a really easy one to be like, oh, you know what? I'll ring my wife because she will understand. Like I'm in Melbourne, have a couple of drinks, and I'll get on the flight in the morning because my wife would understand as well. Like that's where, but it isn't. It's like a conscious decision of, okay, I've done this, which is great. I supported Chris in the gym and everything else. Go back, spend the time with the wife. Wake up at home on Saturday morning, take the dog out. I've taken a lot from him.
It's moments like that. I had a very similar moment with a guy when I first moved back and I met my wife. I was a completely different person, and I was at the pub and I turned around and was talking to this gentleman. I don't know who on earth this bloke was, but what he said to me literally changed my life. And he's like, I can't remember the specific question, but my response was like, oh, it's fucking fucked. And he's like, how about you tell me what you really mean instead of swearing? And at the time I was like angry, but then, it went away. And I thought about that and I was like, man, I'm a terrible communicator. I can't really tell people what I'm talking about. It's like a way to sort of protect yourself or whatever it was. And ever since then, I've been like, I need to really hone in on my communication, right? And I used to mumble and whatever. But what has come from learning to communicate, obviously I started the podcast as a result, and network has exploded and so many opportunities. And it all stems back to that one guy, because had he not said that, my mum's told me millions of times, open your mouth when you're talking. It sounds trivial, but for me, it's like that one, what he said, and just watching how people act or what they say to you can literally transform your life, as opposed to saying, yeah, I'm a good father, but, not saying you're not a good father if you don't go home that night. But those small things of discipline and standards really rubs off on people.
Yeah. You're right. I think all through, there's still things now that come to me and I think, oh, that's... we have a guy, we do training academy here, and there's a guy, Michael Marshall, who he has a coaching company now, but he's been a member of our gym since we started, and he takes a part of our training academy around communication. And I sat in there, and obviously like we put it all together in the content, and so we know it. I know what's going to come, but I sat and listened to it, and he said it's not what you say, it's what they hear. And I've probably heard that a million times in the past and never really thought much of it, but in that sort of sat in there listening to him and just thinking about like everything, like work, like home, like the kids, like I was like, and since that it was a couple of months ago, I'm conscious of it now all the time. Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah, it's cool though, but sometimes you just need to hear it multiple times, right? To create that change. So obviously 98 worked out well for you. You were able to sponsor yourself.
Yeah. It's kind of getting there, is what I keep telling people. It's getting there. I was able to sponsor myself. We opened the gym at Riley Street in 2010. Russell owned it. Sort of fast forward to 2017. I had the opportunity to buy the majority share of Russell. So then 2017, we had a great team in. We're running the program, the performance program that we run now, with Kev Toon and wrote it all. We worked together for a long time on it and got it to sort of where it was. And then it got to the point where it's like, okay, there's a lot of people asking for this program. There's people sort of saying it's great, and we've got 250 members in the gym that love it. So at the time we were like, okay, well, let's try and instead of the old school sending out the PDFs and email and whatever, let's try and build something. So we worked with a guy who was another member of the gym who built our web-based app for us just to see if it worked. We sent a questionnaire out to the members, like, what do you love most about 98? Why did you come? And it was, we love the coaches, the education and the knowledge we get from the coaches, the program and the community that's here. So those three things. I was like, right, again, never really ever built an app. I'm definitely not a tech guy, but I was like, right, we just want these three things basically. I don't want all these other like bits and bats that we can add on and whatever. We just want to replicate these three things as well as we can. So we built it out. The app has like a knowledge base, which is contributors, which could be coaches, nutritionists. We have like Dan Cooper who does that like mindset work and stuff like that. That's on the sat on the knowledge base, and then we've got the program, which is there's currently 5 programs on there, and then we've got a community page where people can post there. Yeah. So that went well. So it was like one of those things where we had a decent amount of people came on, like all the lads in Toowoomba, and it was great. There was people asking for it for a while. So when we launched it, people came on. It grew quite well. We sort of said, look, if it was successful and it paid for itself, we would build out an app. So we transferred it to an app, I think in 2020. So it was like just as COVID was, transferred it across into an app, and then it's kind of moved along from there. Obviously it accelerated a little bit over COVID. We all the gyms closed. We tried to get as much kit out to people as we could, and we wrote like an at-home training program that just sat on there. So we looked after our members the whole way through if we could. We touched base. We had people go on and do tutorials and just Q&As and whatever, and there was constant training, and they could talk to each other in this community board. While all this was going on, we obviously, like I said, the sort of gyms were closed. But pre that, we'd actually opened our second site, which was Bondi. So we opened Bondi in 2020 as well. Yep. That was another. I think I've said on multiple podcasts we would never open.
I was going to say that you weren't going to open up.
We weren't going to open other gyms, and my plan was always like have this one gym and keep the sort of standard inside it very, very strong, and it would be that's our product, and then we would try and sell online, and the growth would come online. The reality was that we had a lot of really great coaches, people who were going to be good managers, people who wanted more. Like from 98, we started to lose a couple of coaches because they just needed better jobs, which was fine. They might be working for me doing 5 hours a week coaching, and they needed that next step, and we didn't have anything. That sort of coupled with a guy that had been contacting me in a fair bit about opening in Bondi, and I met him. I actually called him one day. It was in the middle of COVID, and I was on the train to Canberra, weirdly.
Train to Canberra.
Well, he'd called me multiple times. So he called me loads of times. And I'd spoken to him once. I was like, look, it's not something we're doing. And then over the course of probably a year, I didn't speak to him. And then we have a mutual friend who's Bondi Tony, who owns a burger joint in Bondi. And
delicious.
He rang me and he's like, mate, I'd really like you to speak to Alex. Like, he's a good friend. And so I was like, all right. So I rang him, and I was interested in what he was proposing, opening 98 Bondi, and like I said, I knew we had staff. He had a great location. He was, he's a good dude and all that lot. So it's like, all right, well, let's look at this. So he went and worked. I worked with some franchise consultants over COVID. So I went and sort of worked with these guys as to like, okay, what could it look like? I was heavily against, I was just against it. Still in my mind, it was one of these things where I just was worried. And then one of the guys in the franchise, the franchise consultants, something he said to me was, I was worried about controlling the standard and making sure everything. We didn't want to micromanage it, but we also didn't want it to dilute what we've done over the last 10 years. And he'd said, look, in a franchise agreement, you can literally tell the coaches to wear blue socks on a Tuesday if you want, and if they don't, it's a breach of their agreement. Like, you can put whatever you want in the agreement, to keep that standard as you want it.
Yep. It's just about going through and working out what those standards. Well, obviously you knew what they were. In your head, but whether you had them out and.
Yeah, and so I spent a lot of time building that out. Open Bondi, which was great. It was a great first one. And then COVID hit, which was, like same with everyone. And then, over that break, sort of met with Jane and Michelle in Brisbane. And we went into another one in Melbourne with head office went in with a business partner and opened those at Brisbane and Melbourne after COVID. Like I say, you kind of meet these people. I met Jane and Michelle and straight away it's like, look, these guys get it. You know what I mean? Like they get it. Like we can get the program, we can do this, we can do that. But really, it comes down to the people at the end of the day. Anyway, these guys get it. They're on board. They kind of had a great space, and so moved forward with those guys. And like I said, we went with head office with one in Melbourne. And now, after Melbourne opened, and this one at Sydney, so another one in Sydney, which is the one at Swans HQ, and then Canberra we opened about a month ago. And then there's another couple in the pipeline. So
it's growing, man.
I've gone from like we're not going to do it to, but actually, like I say, we've kind of just my mindset's changed around it. We've you're sat in head office now. We've got sort of 8 staff now that are working full time on making sure that the standard is held. Whether it be marketing, operations, programming, like customer service, whatever it is, like it's not just me now. Like it was fine when it was just me in one gym at Riley Street, but now, like you said, we've got the systems and stuff in place that we can have multiple sites, and it won't be it's not going to be 100 franchise business. Like it's it's like key people in key locations and sort of try and grow the online.
Yeah, I love how you do things, and I want to be very mindful of your time, so we'll wrap up in a sec. Just one quote that I heard you say, and I read as well, was the idea is not to be exclusive, it's to be so inclusive you hold everyone to the same standard. Where did that come from?
That was something that when I was at Jim Jones, I was working at Jim Jones one day, and one of the I think a part of it came from one of the trainers that was there. He'd said it, and I don't know that it was said in the same context, but as I kind of came back to here and we were talking about exclusive and all this, like it became very apparent. I don't know, like we're in Sydney and there's a lot of money flies around in Sydney and all, exclusive clubs and VIP this and all that. And it was like, I don't want people to think that this is exclusive, like financially, or exclusive, like you need to know someone or whatever it is. It's not that. It was that the exclusivity was the ability to work hard. Like effort is a currency, like, and if you come in and you want to, you want to work hard to get from A to B, then great. And if you're a good person on top of that, that's what, that's another tick against your name. And it was about building out a team. Like it was a membership. Like we were, we had members in there, but it wasn't a case of, we had at the time people who came and were just like, I absolutely love the gym. I love the training and everything else, but I'm a student. I really can't afford it. And I'd be like, fine. Like what can you afford? And we put them in at that because it was important to have that person and their personality and values in our group. So at the time we had the ability to do that. So it wasn't, like I was like, right, I built the group. The money came after, if you know what I mean. So it was like, the sort of holding everyone to the same high standard is, I feel like exactly what it is. And again, it sort of reflects in the online community now with a community board that we have. Like people will post their numbers after their sessions, and you're being held to that, whether you like it or not. Like I'm looking at like Phil Driver who trains in his garage in Helensburgh because he's a big guy similar to me, and so I'm looking at what he's doing on the Echo bike, and he knows I'm looking, and he's looking at me. You know what I mean? And same with the guys in Toowoomba. It's like, it kind of built out that we were able to kind of do it in gym, and then now like it's great because we can kind of do it online as well.
When I read that, for me, I wrote it down because I'd really been struggling to articulate ours in the same manner. It's not exclusive for that. It's more around standards, because the people that I surround myself with, and obviously it's your career, their attitude and their boundaries and their standards rub off on you. So if I'm hanging around people that don't have the same standards, it sort of drags you back. And when I read that, I was like, that's absolutely bang on. A success story from obviously your online programming as well, because there'll be people listening from all around the world to this as well. Your online programming is insane. I follow you and see you putting stories up. You put one up the other day where you're on the bike erg. I think it was 12K holding 141.
We've got the online, the sort of 98 training online program now has developed. Like I said, we had at one time we had one guy writing one program, and now we have Wade Farmer who writes the performance program. So that's the sort of default program we run in the gym. And then there's the strength program where we have a guy called Nolan Cody. He writes that, and then Luke Corey who does the capacity work. And so now there's
you have a hybrid one as well.
Dan Potter. Oh God, he'll kill me because that was the first one. We have the hybrid one as well. So the hybrid and the performance are running gym, and then the strength and capacity are sort of outside gym, and then we have groundwork, which is the body weight sort of like kind of edited a bit from COVID, but similar to the COVID one. It's been great to see. Actually, it's been great to see the people get on board, and like I said, the team at head office are bigger. You know, like we're sort of. It's a really big part of the business, and I think it ties in all the franchise. It ties in all the franchise and the company-owned gyms all together as well.
Yeah. I think a point to touch on that, and we'll wrap up on one thing I enjoy about following yours or Jaden's work is like you get to see the community, but you also see what you're doing online. And for me, when I saw you post workouts all the time, and I give them a crack as well. I'm like, I got to try and hit the same fucking pace. But now I've seen the size of you, 6'5" and muscly as all buggery. I'm like, all right, I can drop my numbers a little bit, but it gives you something to chase. So regardless of where you are in the world, if you have access to the erg, like you said, or a bit of flat space, you can get involved with it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, on that, I do always say I'm a one-trick pony. So you give me a bike or a ski or a roller, I'm okay. Like give me anything else. You'll notice all my workouts are like bench or one of the ergs.
Yeah.
Not many burpees or handstands or anything else in there.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on. For everyone who is listening or watching, you can find all the links for 98 gyms for your online programming and obviously where the locations are as well in the show notes as well. So if you do want to get involved with some training, but mate, it's been unreal chatting to you and sort of getting to unpack your brain a little bit, and congratulations on all your success. And I look forward to seeing the direction you guys continue to go.
Yeah, thank you. It's been good.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time. Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.